Preliminary results from various sources. Donald Trump, according to AP, has taken the state of Indiana, and Harris has taken the state of Vermont. This is Associated Press. Donald Trump wins Indiana, Harris wins Vermont. Trump takes Kentucky, and polls close in the first 6 U.S. states, including the swing state of Georgia. So this is what we get. I'm also joined by my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran, who's with us in the studio. Ramesh, can you throw some light on these results? These are generally red states and blue states?
Right. So, Mark, just to bring our viewers up to speed with the latest news we are tracking on our coverage, we have projected winners on 3 seats: Indiana, South Carolina, Kentucky, all 3 where Trump is projected to be winning. So as the graphics on the screen show, Trump is winning Indiana, South Carolina and Kentucky, whereas Kamala Harris is leading and has probably won Vermont. But that said, the numbers as they stack up at the moment, based on projections, is 28 to Trump and 3 to Kamala Harris. Just to repeat, Trump is projected to win or has won Indiana, where 11 votes were at stake, South Carolina with 9 votes up for grabs, and Kentucky with 8 votes up for grabs, making a total of 28 at the moment for Trump, and just 3 for Kamala Harris, who is leading or has won Vermont. That's the news we are tracking here on U.S. election breaking, Mark.
Right, indeed. And none of these are the swing states, so they were on expected lines, one can say.
And also, if I can just quickly bring our viewers up to speed with where the polls are closing or have closed already. Reports suggest that the polls have closed in the states of Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Virginia, Vermont and Georgia, the key swing states there. Next would be a couple of more states as we move westward, moving away from the eastern seaboard across the mainland of the U.S. further westward. More states will see polls closing. But as of now, we have reports that polls have closed in the 6 or 7 states, including Georgia, the key state, the swing state. So Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Virginia, Vermont and Georgia, polls have closed there. Meanwhile, reports
Georgia
also
and Pennsylvania
coming in,
are close by, so that should be...
reports also coming in, Mark, that Trump is alleging cheating in Philadelphia and Detroit, but officials in Philadelphia in particular have refuted those claims. They say no such thing has happened as claimed by Trump. And exit polls also suggest, remarkably, surprisingly at that, Mark, that as far as national voter sentiment is concerned, based on the exit polls, in fact, the numbers say that 35% of voters say democracy is the biggest issue for them, followed by economy by 31%. 14% rate abortion as a third most important issue. 11% say immigration, and only 4% say foreign policy. And just to add quickly there, Mark, 51% of the voters say we trust Trump when it comes to the economy, and 73% say democracy is under threat. Mark.
Indeed. Let's turn to Professor Rajan Kumar. Professor Rajan Kumar, what do you make of these initial results?
Thank you, Mark. I was reminded of my college days. I was in University of Kentucky, so that was a red state, although the educational institutes are very liberal. So that was an expected line, and many of my professors are there, they're still there. Those Indiana going to this Trump, that was again expected. Vermont going to Kamala Harris. So these are the early predictions, and I think they're also accurate, but they're very pre-decided states in the sense that they're either blue or red. I don't think that captures the real image. The real image will start when you start getting results from either from Georgia, nearby North Carolina, and then on the little upper side you have Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and on the other side, just below California, you have that Arizona and Nevada. So from those states, if the results start coming, then that will give you a real picture that where is it going. Trump has said that Pennsylvania there is a fraud, but according to some of the latest polls, they are saying that in Pennsylvania, this Trump is leading. So I don't know why he's making this kind of claim. But again, Trump being Trump, he's known for making such these kind of allegations on his his social media forum, etc.
Okay.
But these are the early indications. We cannot make much out of it. These went as expected, so there has been no change, and we'll have to wait and see.
Indeed, Ms. Uppala, the polls had suggested that people who had already decided who they were going to vote for well in advance of the last few days. Some had decided, like in September itself, they were clear who they were going to vote for. They haven't changed their opinion. There was a poll that I was reading that said, 9 out of 10 people had already decided who they were going to vote for. So the last few days are not really didn't make much of an impact. What would you say? I mean, is that the way generally Americans would be thinking about this election? After all, they've had such a long campaign, and they've also had plenty of time to vote, early voting.
Absolutely. Most Americans know who they were going to vote for, I think, weeks and months, some years, in some instances, years ago. So it's a very small number of undecided voters, really specifically in these 7 swing states that were the key target market for both of these two parties, right? So $2 billion was spent really to court these handful of undecided voters. And amongst them, I think if in the last week or several days you are undecided, then you're probably not going to vote. I think I know many people who, they're on the fence. They're not going to be voting, and sort of they didn't bring it upon themselves.
Mr. Uppala, sorry, may I interrupt you once again? Ramesh is
Mark,
here with us with an update.
Again, in news just coming in. Again, a projection, Mark. Just to remind the viewers, these are projections. Trump is projected to win the key swing state of Georgia, 51 to 48. That's what reports are suggesting. Trump winning a 4th state now after Indiana, South Carolina, Kentucky,
and this is
now Georgia.
According to AP.
16 electoral college votes going there to Trump. These are projections, mind you.
Oh, they are projections. They're not been called by the...
Not yet. So we have 28 plus 16, 44 as of now going to Trump, and only 3 in Vermont going Harris's way.
Okay. So one of the swing states, at least, we can see that there has at least a projection towards Trump. Carry on, Ms. Uppala. Sorry, I interrupted you for that bit of breaking news.
This is fantastic that it's come at the right time, because when you look at pathways for both of these candidates to the White House, as far as Trump is concerned, if he wins Georgia and North Carolina, I think that's much of the legwork done. It's almost a 90% chance that he's going to win, because those are such key states, and so winning both of them, and then maybe he'll pick up another either Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, or Michigan. I think that will do it for him. For Harris, she has to maintain her blue wall. She has to win all 3 key states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. It's very doable, but it's to win all 3 of them, and it's possible, but it's not easy. I think if she loses Georgia, that's a huge blow for her. She pretty much has to win almost everything from now on end, I think, if she loses both North Carolina and Georgia. So, I mean, yeah, these are just projections, but I think these are trends, right? They seem to be showing the projections that are voting. So I think we might have a result by the end of tonight. I just want a landslide either way. I don't want questions in a highly contested election where half the people think that the other side cheated. and they
Okay.
feel like their voice was a waste.
Ms. Uppal, also, what Ramesh was saying earlier about the fact that democracy is the number one issue in this election. We were talking about some of the other issues. We talked about, the economy and abortion. But if democracy is the number one issue, how would you view that, the manner in which it has been portrayed? The Republicans, at least the MAGA Republicans, believe that the Democrats, when they take over the popular vote and they take over the institutions, will become a single-party system over a period of time, and then that's the end of democracy. And of course, the Democrats feel that the Republicans are beginning to take over control of the judicial systems and run down the rest of the democratic institutions to a large extent, and they believe that democracy is under threat. But how do you view it as a voter?
I absolutely think democracy is such a crucial issue, but I would say it's from both sides. And just like you mentioned, from the left, I think the risk is, the total really weaponizing different institutions and having a situation where perhaps there's a large section of the other side that doesn't feel safe or that they're not heard. There's that, and also when you look at the democratic process to elect a nominee, I think there's a lot of even independents and libertarians who would make the claim that the DNC has not been democratic in the fashion that it's nominated its candidate, because they didn't have primaries, they didn't have a fair process. There were several candidates that could have probably been extremely popular and would have made it had there been an actual primary. That didn't happen. So
Right.
we can make a claim that way too. And of course, from the right, we have, I think it's well documented what the left thinks of Trump's, what a Trump administration would look like. I think it's interesting to note that the rest of the world doesn't view it in that terms.
Okay.
In those terms, they don't look at democracy being their biggest issue. I think the rest of the world really is looking at geopolitical issues, conflicts, endless wars. No more. I think a lot of them would like to put an end to these wars and not have prolonging.
Sure, but the rest of the world is not voting in the election. That's the problem. Anyway, thanks a lot, Ms. Preeti Uppala. Thank you for being with us for the moment. I understand that you have other commitments. Thanks for being with us. Right. Ramesh, you were telling us about the issue of democracy. When we look at the US, it has this two-party system, but there have been attempts to make it more than a two-party system, which have all been failed. So, to that extent, how do you see this issue of democracy being really an issue that is troubling the US voter?
In fact, these numbers, Mark, would surprise many, because conventional wisdom dictated, leading up to the polls, the polling day, that three key issues were immigration, economy, and of course the issue of the abortion or reproductive rights. So these three key issues dominated the campaigning. But if these results are anything to go by, it completely changes the argument on its head, so to speak, with 35%, the maximum number of voters, saying that for them, democracy trumps everything else, including economy, jobs, abortion, reproductive rights, immigration, and even foreign policy. And that, to my mind, will determine the outcome of the elections in the key swing states in particular, especially now given the fact that the trend suggests that Trump is projected to win the first of the 7 key states of Georgia, where 16 seats are up for grabs. So clearly things pointing in a certain direction, but these are still early days. We'll have to wait and watch and take the numbers as they trickle in.
Professor Rajan Kumar, you've studied and lived in America. So, to what extent do you look at the issue of democracy? The two-party system, the failure of other parties, of independents to make any ground. In fact, if we look at this whole issue of Donald Trump, he's been considered an outsider. And you know, the first time he won, there was this whole thing that 84%, even now, it appears that, you know, 84% of the media is against him. And he's still considered an outsider to the establishment, even though he served a 4-year term. So how do you view this?
I think, Mark, in my view, America was never an ideal democracy, but given even the limitations were under control because of the very powerful institutions like judiciary, separation of power, etc. And then media was very powerful, media was not controlled. But of late, what has happened that all those institutions have declined, and there's a kind of there's a competition between the two parties to grab the institutions, and Trump has successfully done that by appointing judges in the Supreme Court, and also by controlling media. Recently, you have seen that because you come from media, Washington Post had the convention of endorsing a candidate, but this time realizing that the result may go any side, it might go towards Trump also. So this time, Washington Post, one of the most important newspapers of the United States, it refused to endorse any candidate. So what is happening that there is some kind of fear, intimidation, which has gone into the institutions, be it media, be it judiciary, be it civil society, and also as far as democracy is concerned, what has happened that people are divided, because let's remember that approximately about 19% of the population now would be Hispanic population in the United States. So that is a major minority there, 19% I'm saying. And it has increased very fast in the last few years. And then you have 12% black population. So, and the Democratic Party representing that minority. So you can imagine the kind of politics which is being played out by the Democratic Party.
Right.
And America is a multi-party system, and there are various parties there. But only thing is that the two parties are the dominant parties. Even other party, Green Party, etc. But they do get vote 5 to 6%, and people are saying that this time, Trump, because the Green Party candidate, that party, supported Trump, so that has gone in favor of Trump this time. So, America has become very polarized. The biggest threat to democracy is from very, kind of fascist ideology, very centralizing ideology. If there is a cult figure emerging in democracy, and that is dangerous for any democracy, and that is what we are seeing in United States happening today. Whoever wins is a different issue. But even if, say, for instance, even if Trump loses, the impact of Trumpism will remain for a long time, and he has already done the damage whatever could have been done. And now, as you see in Georgia, he's winning. So we never know. That can be a shocking news for Kamala Harris. And the way Georgia votes, and North Carolina is very close state, neighboring state. And if North Carolina is also lost, then Trump might be the winner also. So democracy is under real threat, and because America was a champion of democracy, and America used to support democracy in other countries through regime change, through other methods, through funding, etc. So that America as a leader of democracy will be questioned throughout the world, and it was always questioned. But now, if you have a leader like Trump who does not believe in democracy, he also said just a few days back that he'll accept the result only if the election is fair. Now the question is, who decides whether the election is fair or not? Trump believes that only his supporters will decide whether the election has been fair or not, which means that he does not believe in the existing institution of the United States, and that's not good for democracy. And even we have doubt, the fact that we have doubts that whether he'll accept the election result or not, that kind of shows the problems which have crept into American system and democracy, and how institutions are not being trusted by people from both sides, from the left, hardcore radical left, but also from the right side. So that shows kind of crisis which has come into American democracy today.